What time is it? It's time for your top 5 to stay alive for June 2017. Are you excited? Are you ready to go? All right, well, let's get going. The CDCs, $200 million con. Topic number 1. Spring is in the air. Smell those flowers blooming. One thing I like about spring, no more pesky get your flu shot being pushed by everyone from your Walmart greeter to where you get your oil change. But now this comes out. The U.S. government just pulled a $200 million con on millions of Americans. The CDC has issued a warning that one of the most common flu vaccines around doesn't work. In fact, it's about as useful as a box of rocks. But there's one very important piece of information the CDC left out of its alert. You see, they've known about the problem for more than a year, and there's only one reason why they waited until after flu season to clue everybody in. With summer here, the flu, and the flu vaccine for that matter, may be the furthest thing from your mind. And trust me, that's exactly what the CDC is hoping, because the admission they just made is the kind of thing they wanted to do as quietly as possible. Turns out that one of the CDC's most sacred cows, the FluMist nasal spray flu vaccine, doesn't stop the flu. Gee, it certainly took them long enough to figure that one out, because I told you about that very same thing about a year and a half ago. Late in 2014, I discovered three studies showing that FluMist was a dud, and one of those came right from AstraZeneca, the company that makes the vaccine. Not only did the CDC know full well about this research, but another one of those studies came from the agency itself. All I heard at that time was the CDC personnel were sitting around scratching their heads. Well, I'm scratching my head too. I mean, it's unbelievable that they just got around to telling us this. And trust me, there's only one reason for it. Our government spends a fortune stockpiling and promoting flu vaccines, and they weren't about to do anything to harm sales during flu season. That's absolutely outrageous, and it's another reason why we shouldn't trust a word from the government as far as flu vaccines are concerned. The CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices is now saying we shouldn't bother with FluMist, which is approved for people between the ages of 2 and 49. Of course, that doesn't help all the people who already got it. As you can imagine, AstraZeneca wasted no time in issuing a press release saying that it still believes the vaccine is effective and it's working with the CDC to better understand its data. Also, that it's going to take an inventory write-down of around $80 million because of this. But don't expect this news to put a dimmer switch on the flu shot frenzy that will be coming right around the corner this fall. As I've said, the vaccine business, which flu shots especially, is a great one to be in. You don't have to guarantee your product works. The feds will help you sell it, and you have absolutely no liability when it harms someone. That's why AstraZeneca made $200 million on FluMist last year alone. Nice work if you can get it. But seriously, flu shots, whether they go up your nose or are injected into your arm, come with a whole host of side effects that drug makers and their minions at the CDC would prefer you never heard about. Take, for example, Fluzone, high-dose shot being pitched to seniors. After being approved by the FDA, the manufacturer reported side effects such as low platelet counts, enlarged lymph nodes, life-threatening allergic reactions, extreme shoulder pain and paralysis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and convulsions. And to top it all off, several years ago, a large analysis of studies done over 4 decades found that when influenza was confirmed, flu shots only provide moderate protection at best. Look, we know that flu vaccine doesn't have to work for the mainstream media to push it, so for all we know, the FluMist may circle back around later this year as the greatest thing since sliced bread. The bottom line regarding the flu is to do all you can to keep your immune system in tip-top shape, wash your hands frequently, take a probiotic, and load up on zinc and vitamin D3. And remember that when it comes to the flu vaccines, lots of times we don't learn that they're lemons until it's too late. Topic number 2. Financial experts are calling it one of the last untapped multi-billion-dollar therapeutic areas. Sounds great if you're talking about your stock portfolio. Not so great if you don't want to be on the liver transplant list. This hot topic is NASH, the acronym that spells out the stealth liver disease that doctors are saying is quietly reaching epidemic proportions. Non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And I don't think, if you're not familiar with that, means you're in the clear. Most people with this disease have no idea they're at risk until they end up in the hospital fighting for their lives. But despite the fact that there's no real treatment for NASH, that is, aside from a liver transplant, there is an easy way to prevent it in the first place. And it's something you'll want to put into effect immediately before it's too late, especially where your kids and grandkids are concerned. By the time people find out that they have NASH, their liver is already in big trouble. Wayne Esker's story is typical. The then 68-year-old Idaho man thought that he was in pretty good shape when he had a gallbladder surgery 6 years ago. But the surgeon didn't like the way his liver looked, and after blood tests and 2 biopsies, a diagnosis of NASH was made. He had, in effect, cirrhosis of the liver, and the only treatment would be a liver transplant. I was dumbfounded, said Eckridge. I had no clue. And that's how it goes with NASH. People who appear to be healthy, don't drink excessively, and don't have a history of hepatitis C or other liver diagnosis are blindsided by a NASH diagnosis. But even more common than NASH is a predecessor, NAFLD, N-A-F-L-D, which stands for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's a slow-moving condition. It has nothing to do with alcohol, but a lot to do with other things that you eat and drink. More on that in a minute. The CDC says that 80 million Americans have NAFLD right now, and that could mean that around 3 million may very well progress into the deadlier NASH. And that's why Big Pharma is moving full steam ahead in trying to come up with a drug that, if approved, will bring billions. But what should be even hotter topic is how to steer clear of both conditions in the first place. You see, to study what drugs might work, researchers first have to give lab rats fatty livers. And that's by feeding them high diets in high fructose and trans fats. It's the perfect recipe for a fatty liver. High fructose corn syrup, fructose, and partially hydrogenated oils. Things you'll find in drinks like soda, tea, and even fruit beverages, as well as in everyday foods like bread, ketchup, cereals, and salad dressings. And trans fats are found in numerous bakery items and processed foods. So here's what you need to do to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. High fructose corn syrup isn't just in soda. All sorts of foods and drinks contain this laboratory sweetener. Read labels and put back anything that contains it. Also ditch anything containing fructose, fruit sugar, and crystalline fructose. These are typically just disguised names for every potent versions of high fructose corn syrup. Check labels for partially hydrogenated oils. The FDA has recently banned its use in food, but it will take years for that to fully go into effect. The only kind of fructose you want is the natural kind found in apples, peaches, and pears. In other words, real food. The fiber slows its absorption and allows it to be digested in a different and a very healthy way. I love the next one. Topic number 3. Here we go. You can't watch TV more than 10 minutes these days without seeing that commercial for the IBS drug Viberzi, featuring the red-headed girl in the beige jumpsuit with the colon showing. She even has a name. It's Irritable. No, I'm seriously not kidding. Whether you find these ads to be amusing or downright annoying, there's something you need to know about Viberzi, and Irritable won't be telling you. Not only has the drug logged well over 100 reports of serious pancreatitis or death with the FDA, but the agency has just issued a warning about who should never take Viberzi. And that turns out to be hundreds of thousands of Americans. But what if the key to managing this painful and disruptive condition doesn't come from a pill after all, but from a bottle of inexpensive vitamins instead? Those Viberzi ads have already been shown close to 10,000 times, and there's even a longer version on the drug's webpage with Irritable attending an intervention with an IBS sufferer, her friends, and a boss. The advertising madman who came up with the idea said that the point was to do something fresh and memorable. Well, here's something very fresh and also quite memorable about this drug. At the end of last week, the FDA issued a safety warning for Vyburzi. It finally revealed that the med is causing severe, sometimes deadly attacks of pancreatitis and an incredibly painful condition called sphincter of Oddi spasm. No, it's not an Egyptian pyramid I'm talking about. It also warned that anyone who has had their gallbladder removed needs to stop taking Vyburzi right away. Considering that gallbladder removal surgery is one of the most common operations out there, with hundreds of thousands done every year, we're talking about a whole lot of people out there. But even though the FDA just got around to warning us about this, it appears that the agency has been sitting on its hands where this risk is concerned for some time now. On its potential signals of serious risk chart that came out last year, it has Vyburzi marked as waiting for the FDA to evaluate the need for regulatory action. And on its current warning, it says that pancreatitis, which is inflammation of the pancreas that causes pain, nausea, and vomiting, and can lead to life-threatening complications, turns out can happen after just 1 or 2 doses of Vyburzi. 2 patients who died after taking the drug were hospitalized, but passed away despite emergency care. 1 died within 3 days of taking the very first dose. The just out safety announcements also tell doctors that for patients with IBS and diarrhea, which Vyburzi was actually approved to treat, who have had their gallbladders removed, there are options. The FDA recommends over-the-counter meds such as, get this, Pepto-Bismol, Imodium, and Gas-S. Seriously, imagine reading, after losing a loved one from taking this med, that the FDA now says they could have used Pepto-Bismol. But there's another option as well, and it doesn't involve taking any drugs or over-the-counter meds. Not too long ago, UK researchers discovered that simply taking a high-dose vitamin D3 supplement every day, up to 10,000 IUs, which can also be achieved by exposing your skin to a short amount of sunlight in the summer, was able to give IBS sufferers big-time relief. The researchers also tested blood levels of IBS patients, finding that over 80% were deficient in vitamin D. Could that be a missing link in treating this disease? Irritable, according to the ad agency, is meant to be annoying, just like a friend who's outstayed her welcome, but perhaps what's been around too long are dangerous drugs like Vyburzi, especially if the secret to really treating IBS is simply a supplement of vitamin D3 or a sunny day. By the way, Cardio for Life has 2,500 IUs of vitamin D3, so if you're doing a double dose, 1 in the morning and 1 at bedtime, you only need to add 1 5,000 IU of vitamin D supplement, which is very inexpensive, or step out in the sun, especially this time of year, without any sunscreen for about 10 minutes each day. Topic number 4. It's one of the oldest heart drugs on the market, but if you have the common heart rhythm condition atrial fib or AFib, it could be a death sentence. I'm talking about Digoxin. It's been prescribed for over 80 years, so you would think doctors would know just about everything there's to know about it by now. But it seems where Digoxin is concerned, more and more risks are being revealed every year. Now a new study has confirmed with strong, comprehensive, and up-to-date evidence that the AFib patients starting up on this drug may kill you long before any heart problems will. This latest study on Digoxin comes from doctors at the Clinical Research Institute at Duke University. They looked at around 18,000 patients with AFib who were already participating in a large drug trial. And what the Duke researchers found is that Digoxin is incredibly dangerous for anyone with AFib. So dangerous, in fact, that in announcing the results of the study in a university press release, the word death was mentioned all of 18 times, especially as increased risk of death and sudden death. For those with AFib starting up on Digoxin, up their chances of dying from any cause by a gigantic, get this, 78%. Plus that, the risk of sudden death was 4 times higher than that of AFib patients who didn't take it. Dr. Renato Lopez, lead author of the study, said that most of the sudden deaths that occurred in the trial patients happened within 6 months of starting up on the drug. But even if you've been taking Digoxin for a long time, you're still not out of the woods. For the AFib patients who had already been on this med, the researchers found that the concentration of it in their blood could make the difference between life and death. For every increase in digoxin of 0.5 nanograms per milliliter, the risk of dying went up almost 20%. For those with the highest blood concentration, that risk was increased by a whopping 56%. And something that makes these findings even more frightening is that millions have a condition called silent AFib, meaning that they be totally unaware that they even have this erratic heart rhythm disorder. Of course, if this were all a big surprise, it would be bad enough. But almost 2 years ago, we told you about another study that sounded a similar warning where digoxin and AFib are concerned. That was the one in which researchers from Kaiser Permanente looked at thousands of people with AFib, some taking the drug and some not, and found those in the digoxin group had 71% higher risk of dying. Those patients were almost 60% more likely to land in the hospital. And 2 years before that, the Kaiser researchers found that those newly diagnosed with AFib and put on the drug had double the death rate of those who were taking it. Other studies have had familiar findings, particularly one out of Sweden 10 years ago that discovered patients with AFib given digoxin were twice as likely to die within a year as those not prescribed the drug. Now, in a case you're wondering why so many AFib patients are still being given an RX for digoxin, despite all these frightening findings, one reason could be the current guidelines followed by many cardiologists amazingly still list the med as a treatment option. That's why if you're taking any drugs for your heart, it's time to do a check and find out if digoxin is one of them. And if so, make an appointment with your doctor as soon as possible to discuss other treatments, whether you have AFib or not. Just because digoxin is as old as the hills doesn't make it any safer than a drug that's just come on the market. Here again, I have many people who have had their AFib disappear by taking Cardio for Life. In fact, when we get to the testimony section, you're going to hear about that from one of the testimonies. And finally, sadly to say, topic number 5. It's one of Big Pharma's favorite fake diseases, and that's prediabetes. And now a group of mainstream researchers are trying to pressure doctors into turning as many of their patients as possible into pre-diabetics with 2 new studies. But instead of preventing diabetes, that the trick is much more likely to start you up on a lifetime of meds that you never needed in the first place. Pre-diabetes is when a test shows your blood sugar is a little bit elevated, but it's not high enough to get you diagnosed as a diabetic. As I've told you before, even the name isn't something official, but was a catchy phrase used by someone at a press conference held by the American Diabetics Association, or ADA, some years back, and it stuck like a fly in molasses. Now there are public service announcement campaigns with cutesy commercials about it. Even an online quiz where in 7 short questions you can practically diagnose yourself. But I guess not enough people rushed off to tell their doctors after taking this test, so now the mainstream media is attempting to give it to a big push from other direction. If they can convince your doctor to stop priming you for prediabetes, they've won half the battle already. One of the new studies is criticizing doctors, saying that if half of them don't screen patients for prediabetes, the other is trying to sell doctors on the importance of testing for it. But it also reveals that there is no national or international consensus that lays out exactly what this condition is. Wait, so here we have the CDC and the ADA all going hog wild with their "do I have prediabetes" tests and commercials, but there's no optimal definition for doctors to use in diagnosing it. Seriously. One expert who isn't buying is Dr. Perry Wilson, who specializes in kidney disease at Yale. He said that he's sick and tired of all these diseases. He also notes that how 4 out of 5 people over 60, that's around 70 million Americans, over twice the number that have type 2 diabetes, would fail that online quiz the CDC and ADA are pitching. 4 out of 5 are going to fail. And if you're asking the ADA what its idea of prediabetes is, well, that appears to be a moving target. In 1997, it lowered the glucose numbers needed to fit the definition. Now it's saying that any elevated sugar needs reading will do. If you're wondering why the mainstream is so anxious to slap a prediabetes label on you, it's simple. The stakes are huge. Big Pharma would love it if they could get millions of non-diabetics using their drugs. With so many of them out there, you don't need a calculator to know drug makers will rake in millions. Right now, any diabetes drug could be prescribed by your doctor off-label to treat this so-called disease. And one of the most popular is Actos, a diabetes med that was linked to bladder cancer over 5 years ago, the FDA warned. And now, new research on that drug found it can up your risk of that kind of cancer by a giant 63%. There's also Lantus, another type 2 med that's given out like candy and has been linked to cancer. The bottom line is this: if your blood sugar numbers are a little high, dropping some pounds, daily walking, healthy changes to your diet are proven ways to steer clear of diabetes. And Cardio for Life is also formulated for all diabetics, type 1, type 2, and yes, pre-diabetes. You see, it has arginine-derived nitric oxide and chromium, but also has a newer ingredient called estrogen. Not estrogen, estrogen, which increases insulin sensitivity by 38% and increases glucose absorption by 57%. But the best news is Cardio for Life prevents arteriosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, which can lead to heart attack, stroke, blindness, or amputation. And by the way, the diabetes drugs your doctor will be recommending actually increases arteriosclerosis. Oh, sure, it drops your blood sugar numbers, but it's rushing you to end your life. It's a great bait and switch program. That concludes our top 5, and now we're going to move on to our testimony section. And these testimonies are powerful, so if you email this out to people or forward this to somebody and they don't want to spend the time looking at all the information, tell them just to watch the testimonies. Dr. Harry: I use the Cardio for Life product every day. I drink it first thing in the morning and it just gives my body the feeling that it's ready to go. It's not a hyped up feeling, it's more of a smooth, strong feeling. The company has great service, they always deliver with no delays. I also have used the Flux product when I was having issues on a stiff back and overall soreness from sitting for long hours at work. After drinking the Flex, I could feel everything chill out and I could sleep through the night. I strongly recommend these products. Dr. Harry is awesome, thank you very much, with his top 5 to stay alive report, so sign up for that too. The Health Guardian really cares about your health and the products show that by performance. Thank you, Dr. Harry. That's Don Jarvis. Thank you, Don. And yes, we do care. Testimony 2. Cardio for Life has provided me with the only surefire way of actually stripping the bad cholesterol out of my vascular veins and arteries. No BS. I utilize it twice a day when my doctor suggested medical prescriptions with side effects. Cardio for Life has no side effects. I started at a fearful 280 cholesterol level. Next checkup, 1 year later, I astounded my doctor. It dropped to 105. My health is restored. I still use Cardio for Life though not to save my life as before, rather to keep my bloodstream clean so my heart can function as God so intended it to without the speed bumps. Well, thank GC. Testimony number 3. My husband and I have been on Cardio for Life for almost 2 years. My husband has a stent, so we want to be sure it stays clear. Cardio for Life will do that. His blood pressure has dropped, so now he is close to being off his blood pressure medicine. We have purchased bikes and are riding bikes at least 3 to 4 times a week. Also, the Thermax cream is fantastic. I put it on my husband's back when it's hurting him and it relieves the pain immediately. Dr. Harry is so good at taking our calls and answering all our questions. Well, thank you so much, Beverly. And now, testimony number 4. My son-in-law, a cardiologist, insists I have a check for what was a fleeting irregularity in my heartbeat. You know what we're talking about, AFib. His father, a top cardiologist on both sides of the border, made the comment that my heart was in better shape than 6 years ago when I had 4 stents put in. I informed the both of them that the only difference is I am out taking Cardio for Life every day. Thank you for that, Mary. And this final one, if you don't watch the whole video, you got to watch this. This is a powerful one. Dr. Harry, I was admitted into the hospital for a serious heart valve repair with 20% survival chance. Operation went well, but they managed to tear a hole in my stomach while doing it, which put me into a 3-week coma from which I was lucky to emerge alive, but I was 95% paralyzed, could only move my right eye, and 24/7 on oxygen for 2 months. Left hospital 3 months later, barely able to walk, a near skeleton, and on tons of medications which were making me sick. In desperation, I searched online and I found Dr. Harry's Cardio for Life, and I knew that was it. I started on a 3 scoop a day for the first month, and at the same time started cutting in half each of the medications. I felt the energy increase straight away, and 1 week I was taking 1/4 of each drug prescribed to me and already feeling much better. After just 3 weeks on Cardio for Life, I stopped all my medications and have been on 0 drugs ever since. After 4 weeks, I can say I started feeling myself again. Annual cardiologist appointments with echo and other tests are perfect, to the utter amazement and disbelief of whatever cardiologist I see. When they want to check my medications at the end of the appointment and I tell them I'm on 0 medications, they look deeply shocked and like they could do with some Cardio for Life themselves. I guarantee those doctors are probably out of half a dozen different meds. I take it twice a day, love the way I feel, doing yoga again, and have just been to India for over 2 months, was previously told I could never fly again, but no problem. Also using Flex and Thermomax, all great products and much appreciated sound advice, reassurance from Dr. Harry when I was unsure of how to come off all the dreaded medications. Cardio for Life is my all-time favorite, a friend for life. I keep recommending it to people, a life-saving product in an age when, let's face it, the drug companies and your lovely doctor, even the government, would rather see you gone. After making as much money as possible, of course, out of you by getting you sick first. Cardio for Life is a godsend, as is the monthly news video, 5 Alive. Much gratitude, Dr. Harry, for not only saving literally hundreds of lives, but also giving us back great quality of life. Long may you continue. That's Russ from the United Kingdom. Well, thank you so much for that. And yes, quality of life is more important than just extending your life, because you don't want to end up in a nursing home drinking your meals through a straw. Quality of life means everything. Remember, we were designed by God to live 120 years, not 60, 70, end up in a nursing home and live to 90, like I said, drinking your meals through a straw. And that concludes our top 5. Hey, it's the beginning of summer, people. Enjoy it, stay safe, enjoy yourself, and God bless you all. This is Dr. Harry saying, till next time. Oops.